Hello everyone! This is a video that I have been meaning to do for a very long time, but I keep being mid-series, and eventually I've had to just say, I will always be mid-series, and we're just gonna do it. This was actually one of the first YouTube videos on BookTube that got me reading a bunch of new stuff was Daniel Green's version of this, just a full-on series tier list. I admit I have stat padded the number of series a little bit. Like, if you look carefully there, you will notice every sub-series of Realm of the Elderlings. You will notice I've split up Faithful and the Fallen and Blood and Bone. I've called Lord of the Rings a standalone all the time, but Lord of the Rings is on here. But we got, and this is every series where I have completed at least one book, and it's intended to be a series. There are some, if you go even further back, that I have on here, but ultimately I decided to go as far back as I did on Goodreads. Like, I read things before Maze Runner that I just don't include in my Goodreads because I don't know. Do we really need to go back to when I was in elementary school? Probably not. But I've got 93 series here, and I am ranking them on the scale of spiritual experience to mild torture. Yeah, and that's basically it. There's nothing fancy going on here. This is a public one, so presumably if you want to do this, you can, and just make another tier that's like, I haven't read these, unless you're a madman who has actually read all of these series. Which, you know, if someone has read every series that I've read, that's extremely cool. This person has probably also read, like, just a lot more generally. But we've got them in alphabetical order, and yes, as you can see for the stat padding, A Targaryen History is a series. Fire and Blood is book one of that series. And George Martin gets to go first because he titles his series A Song of Ice and Fire and A Targaryen History instead of The Song of Ice and Fire or The Targaryen History. So apparently there could be other songs of Ice and Fire and other Targaryen histories, and he's willing to acknowledge that. Unlike Tolkien, who's like, it's one Lord of the Ring, or it's like there's the Stormlight Archive, the definitive one. So great display of humbleness from George. And A Song of Ice and Fire is going in. I love these books. I read A Song of Ice and Fire for the first time quite a while ago. It's a series I've read in its entirety twice, and I've read A Game of Thrones 3 times, and obviously watched the show. Continue to become more impressed with it as I read more things, especially on my reread of Game of Thrones. Not just the character work, which I always thought was good, but like the plotting and the way things progress is so good. Great world building. Just like, this is one where when the only knock against you is well, there are other knocks against it, but the biggest one is just like it's not finished. If this is holding you back from reading it, I encourage you to give it a try. I always don't see how that can really be a loss. Like, if you love it, would you really rather have not read it? And if you don't love it, then who cares about the wait? Fire and Blood. I really like Fire and Blood. Do I love Fire and Blood? Is Targaryen History... I think we're going to put Targaryen History in green, and I like this. It's these plural. There's obviously only one Targaryen history book out. Presumably there could be a second, and if he comes out with that, I'm sure everyone will get really mad at him, but I'll be excitedly waiting for it because I want to know what happens. And yes, I've also split up the 2 First Law trilogies. Yeah. So, Age of Madness trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Do I like Age of Madness more or less than A Song of Ice and Fire? So Storm of Swords would definitely be my favorite book of all of them, but I think I'd give the nod to Age of Madness on consistency. I love all 3 Age of Madness books. They're, I think, extremely tightly plotted while also having their own brilliant character work. I think the supporting cast of A Song of Ice and Fire, like, I think George is generally stronger than Abercrombie at those, but Age of Madness is where it's at its closest. And then obviously, you know, the main POV characters are fantastic in both. Next, Binti. Yes, this is how much I was stat padding. We're including Binti, which is a novella I read last year. And it has sequels, so it counts as a series. And I'd say I don't not like these. I just realized this is going to be, like, I like these is going to have a lot. Because I don't dislike Binti. It's pretty close. Like, this is going to... So, I thought the world was cool. I like Binti. I like that the aliens were actually, like, alien and not just people with different foreheads. Plotting-wise, I just thought it was a bit of a mess. There are some traumatic incidents in this book that I would say did not feel like they had at all believable psychological consequences. Let's put it that way. And there was one of, like, I know show don't tell is not universal advice. Sometimes you can tell not show. But one of the more egregious examples of telling instead of showing, I think, takes place in about the middle of this book. Okay, Book of the Ancestor by Mark Lawrence. I would also say I don't not like Book of the Ancestor, but it would be higher. I don't not like Book of the Ancestor. Nona's a really fun protagonist. There was weird thing where, like, before I read it, I kept seeing people be like Nona among, like, their favorite characters of all time, and I really like Nona. She's really cool. She's entertaining. If I'm being completely, I just don't think she's one of the best, like, most complex characters I've ever read. No, and I'm using that phrase literally. Like, a lot of the time when people say, like, not one of the most complex characters I've ever read, that's them saying not complex. But I mean, like, I'd seen her put in among the best characters ever, and I just don't think she's close to that. And I just struggled with the writing style. Felt, I don't know, just very unintuitive, like, when you're descriptively. Yeah. Next is Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. I guess I'm including Earth of the New Sun in these. I love Book of the New Sun. Where would I put it among Age of Madness and A Song of Ice and Fire? These three would all be really close. Damn. I'm gonna put it third. I think these are more enjoyable. But Book of the New Sun is wild. It's one of the most impressive things ever. I don't know how Gene Wolfe wrote it. But I am going to put it below George and Abercrombie there. Next we have the Chaos Walking Trilogy. I would say I love Book 1, and then I quite like Book 2 and 3. It's hard to compare to just Fire and Blood, which is only one book. I think I like Fire and Blood more than Book 2 and 3. This is a YA sci-fi series. Incredible, like, world-building mysteries and hooks. Just addicting to read. Like, it's just one of those, like, you have to keep going. And, I mean, Book 1 especially, I think, actually had some, like, really beautifully written moments as well. An arguably over-the-top antagonist who I just, like, really hated. I bought in. I think I'm going to put it... Man, I really like Fire and Blood. You know what? I'm gonna go higher highs over having one book that I'm gonna go the one book that I like the most, and then the two I don't like quite as much. Children of Time. This is 3 books. I have only read 1, but we're stat padding when creating this tier list, so it's on here. This is one of those where I am curving it based on the fact that I have only read 1 book. That book, but I love that book. It feels weird to put it on the same tier as here, but maybe I should put it on that tier, and I can just, in the future, I can be like, I can move it down if I don't like the others as much, or I can keep it there if I do like the others as much, because I like Children of Time basically just as much as I like The Knife of Never Letting Go, and it's I don't know, I haven't read anything else, but I think we're going to put it in, I love these. Aeronauts Windlass, Jim Butcher. This is his 3rd most well-known series. Not Aeronauts, Cinder Spires. There's 2 books now. Woohoo! This is some solid, I like these. Really just enjoyable, fun, interesting world. Great dialogue. Badass action. Flying airships that shoot, like, plasma at each other. It's Jim Butcher. It's a good time. He's also on here for Codex Era. I have a good deal of nostalgia for Codex Era, so I would like you to keep in mind when I place it above Book of the New Sun, and A Song of Ice and Fire, and Age of Madness. Is this arguably unreasonable? Quite possibly. But you know what? I love Codex Era. It was when I read it at like the age of 14. It was my favorite series. All of Cursor's Fury through First Lord's Fury go incredibly hard. They are some of the more addicting books I've read. They'll be good just from cover to cover. A lot of characters I love. Crazy action, like crazy in terms of epicness. Tavi of Calderon, the protagonist, is probably like one of the characters who's tried to inspire my morality more than others, just because I read it at such a young age, and I think it's a pretty damn good role model. I think the series is called like The Dead Djinn. It might have more books, whatever. I have it on here. Master of Djinn. I didn't not like Master of Djinn. I didn't love Master of Djinn. I thought it was a really fun mystery thriller, cool world. I just don't remember loving it. Next we have Discworld. I have only read 3 of 42 Discworld novels. Those 3 are Mort, Guards, and Small Gods. Small Gods is my favorite pretty easily. It would be up in I love them. Guards would be in I like this, and Mort would be in I don't not like this. I thought all 3 were hilarious. Small Gods I thought had the most compelling story of the 3. I'm going to put it in I like this. Divergent is terrible. Of all the, like, some of the YA series that I read when I was younger have aged reasonably well. I find it hard to find positive things to say about Divergent. It might be at the bottom of this entire tier list. Yeah, so I read these a long time ago. So, in fairness, probably if I read it now, I would have a more nuanced take, and I would be able to be like, okay, I guess they do these things to an okay degree. The problem is I would also be more articulate in why it's a trash can. And I guess there's the very, very slight possibility that it's not as much of a trash can as I remember, but I suspect if I read it now, I would just be able to articulate in many ways why I thought it was a complete trash can. Dune. I've read 2 of the Dune books. I'm probably going to be reading Children of Dune next when I finish the current book I'm reading. I love Dune the novel. I am pretty lukewarm on Dune Messiah. I thought it had some really weird stuff in it that just wasn't that compelling. The thing is, I like the general idea of Dune Messiah, like how it interacts with Dune. Like, I like that it exists, because I think it makes Dune stronger. I wonder if I would have liked it more had I not talked with a bunch of people about Dune and kind of had an idea of where it was going. But I still like the series for sure, because Dune, the first novel, is so strong. Parable of Sower. This is the Earth Seed, which is a duology. I have not read Parable of Talents, only Parable of Sower. I liked Parable of Sower. I was not blown away by Parable of Sower. Recently, Kyle read Parable of Sower, and he also liked it, but didn't think it was amazing, and this made me optimistic, and once again made me more excited to read Kindred again. It's always it's kind of a weird relief when, even though obviously I would have liked Kyle to enjoy the books he reads, when you've read one book by an author, and then someone who you tend to agree with has read other books, and they're like, these are brilliant, and then they read one you did, and they're like, yeah, it was pretty good. You're like, oh, okay. I'm going to put this, I think I like it more than Master of Djinn. I'll put it at the top of I don't not like these. Dreams of the Dying is apparently getting a sequel, so again, we have stat-padded and put it on this tier list. I really like Dreams of the Dying. I don't know if I can put it up in love. This is a pretty high bar. But we're going to put it... I think we're going to put it here. Ender's Game. Ender's Game. What's up, Kyle? I read this as a child. I enjoyed it as a child. We're not going to revisit it. I like it. Gentlemen Bastards. This is one where if I could pull a Children of Time and had only read The Lies of Locke Lamora, it would be an I love these. It moves down to I like these. I still quite like Republic of Thieves. Republic of Thieves on its own would easily make this middle tier. Not Republic. Red Seas over Red Skies. Republic of Thieves, I just think really lacks stakes. I actually just think the entire general plot doesn't. I don't very screwed, and I was like, wait, so this doesn't actually really matter? But the dialogue and the banter is so good. So it pretty securely is in. I like these. And it could return to form and get up to I love these. Harry Potter. I obviously read this as a kid, and then I reread it in 2019 and thought it held up reasonably well. The funny thing about Harry Potter, I think, is that the two least interesting characters are Voldemort and Harry, and that's giving Harry too much crap. Voldemort, I think, is the least interesting character because he's just like, what's your personality? Evil. I mean, like, what traits do you have? I'm the bad guy. No, but like, what motivates you? Suffering. It's like, okay, dude, sure. The world is obviously magical, and they're just very addicting to read. So they would be. I like Harry Potter. Golden Compass. I've only read book 1. I need to continue Golden Compass. That being said, I don't not like the Golden Compass, but I don't know if I would say I firmly like the Golden Compass quite a bit. This was pretty disappointing. I had high expectations for Golden Compass. It had some really good scenes. It also, and I stand by this, the resolution with the bear at the end was incredible nonsense. Like, it was so silly, it made me roll my eyes. And in general, most of the scenes, I was just like, oh yeah, this is fine, I guess. Hyperion, similar situation as Dune, where I love the novel Hyperion. If this was, like, the Scholar's Tale was a spiritual experience. The second half of the Poet's Tale was a spiritual experience. Of the Priest's Tale, sorry. The Poet's Tale, I love. I love the Poet's Tale. There are sections of Fall of Hyperion I love. And, like, Soldiers and Detective Tale I like. And, there's a bunch of parts of Fall of Hyperion that I don't not like. But it's going a little bit above Dune, because I like Hyperion a little bit more than I like Dune, and I like Fall of Hyperion a little bit more than I like Dune Messiah. So that just checks out. Legend by Mary Lou, read these a long time ago. I remember Day can climb buildings very fast, and the other character can keep track of what time it is really well. And also, Day is once betting on a fight with the other character, not knowing that she has protagonist energy. And he loses money gambling. Bet against her. So these are things I remember about it, and that I don't not like them. But I'm not willing to say definitive things about them. And I'm just putting them roughly in the middle of I don't not like these. Because I remember them being fun. Brent Week's Lightbringer. So the previous version of this tier list I had was how it had changed over time tier list. When I first read Lightbringer, it would have firmly been in I like these. If you stopped me after the first 3 books, I was extremely high on them. I might have even snuck it up here. Then book 4 happened, and then book 5 happened, and I've just gotten lower on them over time. That being said, I do not dislike Lightbringer. Because Lightbringer just has a lot in its favor. Now, I massively dislike one Lightbringer book. But you know what? There's a lot to like here. So I'm going to put it here. Okay? It's got maybe the best premise for a character that I have ever read. And it's also, I think, got the worst, like, plot twist reveal that I've ever read. So there's some real high highs and low lows here. I am number 4. These were fun. Let's put them here. Malazan, Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. May have heard of it. So I love Malazan. It's going in this tier. The question is where in this tier. I like it more than Children of Time. The average score is lower, but it's 10 books, and it maintained that over 10 books. Do I like it more than Book of the New Sun? I think Book of the New Sun was more consistently interesting. There were less times in Book of the New Sun where I was reading to get to the next section. But Book of the New Sun did not have the emotional highs that Malazan did to me. I know they get compared a lot. Extremely different series. The only things they have in common, really, are that they're good, they're weird, and they're somewhat challenging. Or somewhat, like, confusing at times. But the things that make them good are totally different, and the things that make them weird are totally different, and the things that make them confusing are totally different. I think I'm going to put Malazan higher. I think I had a top 10 series list, and I put Malazan higher, so I think I'm being consistent with that. I had First Law lower, but that's because it was all of First Law and not just Age of Madness. Now, Malazan or A Song of Ice and Fire. Damn. This is really close for me. A year ago, I would have said Malazan. After rereading A Game of Thrones, if I curve all the... if you go based on my enjoyment the last time I read both, Malazan wins pretty easily. But if I were to read both again now, which would I like more? I think I would still probably like Malazan more. And I think this is also the case for Age of Madness. And then I think it loses to nostalgia. I love Codex Era. I know Malazan Book of the Fallen is better than Codex Era. I have more personal attachment to Codex Era. I think non-bias me, like if I read Codex Era now, it would still be like, it'd be like in I like these. But I'm not going to just ignore the emotional attack. Like, when I see other people read Codex Era and like it, this makes me much more excited than any of these other series, which I think says something about my emotional attachment for Codex Era. Yeah. Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I like Memory and Sorrow and Thorn. It also, my expectations were extremely high, and it disappointed me, which was unfortunate, but it's still really good. Dragonbone Chair is my favorite, somewhat comfortably. But it makes it into I like these, and we'll put it above Ender's Game. Do we want it above Discworld? I think I like Small Gods more than I like any of the 3 Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn books, but I think we'll put it above Discworld. Okay. Mistborn, Era 1. Yes, I split them. As I said, we are stat padding. I love Mistborn Era 1. I think it's one of the best plotted series I've ever read. I think the way the mysteries are unfolded is simply incredible. I think the action is awesome. Like, the way I can visualize, like, the Allomancy fights and the way it leads to, like, really creative, clever problem solving is incredible. I still really like the characters. It made me buy the world-ending stakes, which I think is pretty hard to do. So it gets it in I love these, but it's behind all these ones above it. Of Blood and Bone by John Gwynne, which is the second series in the second John Gwynne series. I like this series, definitely. I probably like it more than Harry Potter, I would guess. It's got giants riding bear cav, so that's pretty awesome. I think it definitely... John Gwynne is known for killing characters of his, like, of main characters not being safe. I was able to predict basically every single character death in the first 2 novels. I was not able to predict all the character deaths in the 3rd novel. I think the 3rd novel in this trilogy is the best by far. It reads very quickly. It's very well paced. We're putting it there. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, I like, but on the lower end. We're gonna put it like there. I think this is it's in some ways it's like character-wise the opposite of Harry Potter, where Percy is, I think, a really good protagonist, and then the antagonist, who I'm not gonna say it is. Yes, we're avoiding Percy Jackson spoilers here. Is also really good. And there's some good side characters, but one of the things that makes Harry Potter very successful, I think, is that a lot of the side characters have, like, people we're able to get attached to. Like, there are people obsessed with, like, random side character who, if you're not a huge Harry Potter fan, you're like, who? And, like, who is the massive fan of, like, Clarice out there? But yeah, incredibly fun series. Ready Player One is one of the books that I'm never going to reread, because I enjoyed it when I read it. I read it in 9th grade. I was 14, and I thought it was really fun. I don't know how much I would like it now, but I'm just gonna put it with Ender's Game. But I'm gonna put it below Ender's Game because I think Ender's Game has more artistic merit. Red Rising. This is for me the trilogy. I know it's all called the Red Rising Saga now, but am I being Mandela affected? I swear when I started, this was called the Red Rising series, and then the other one was called, like, the Red Rising trilogy, and then the second one was called the Dark Age trilogy, which has now become a quartet. And now it's just all the Red Rising saga. This is a series. I have not read Iron Gold. I don't want to have to reread everything when the last book comes out, so I am waiting. So, not because I'm like afraid of waiting, but just because I want to be able to not have a huge gap between Lightbringer and whatever the last book is, so I don't forget all the stuff I read. But I would say I like Red Rising. Book 1, I think, would be like in this tier. I just don't like Darrow in book 1. I find him incredibly uninteresting and kind of cringe. But I really like most of the side cast. And then in Golden Sun, I like Darrow a little bit more, and the side cast a little bit more. I think Morning Star is, from a character and writing standpoint, the best of the 3 by far. Golden Sun is wild and incredibly fast-paced. It might be the fastest. For my enjoyment, I think Golden Sun is actually too fast-paced. Morning Star does fumble some things that annoy me quite a bit, that make it so it's barely my favorite in the trilogy. We're going to put it here. Skyward. I've read 2 of 4. First one is better. The second one takes more risks, but is less fun. Probably like here. Do I like it more than Harry Potter? No, probably not. It's kind of weird to put like Skyward above Tad Williams, but I think I had more fun reading it. Okay, the Soldier's Son trilogy. So this is the first Robin Hobb trilogy. If this is the first time watching my videos, note that this is the Robin Hobb trilogy that everyone hates. I like it quite a lot. Force Mage was my book of the year last year. Shaman's Crossing is a complete goddamn mess in terms of pacing. I am not someone who's one of the "this book is too long" people who say that constantly. Shaman's Crossing is wildly too long. The main character is incredibly frustrating. He's like incredibly self-righteous. He's like he's like a person playing an annoying, lawful good D&D character who's not actually a good person. He's just annoying. But beside this, I still really like the novel Shaman's Crossing. The entire ending was insane. The character and relationships, like the entire supporting cast, felt so believable and human because it's Robin Hobb. So I love it. I think it's brilliant. I forget the name of the series, but it's a memory called Empire. I don't not like it, but I don't know if I firmly like it. Really like the setting. Like, the setting was cool. Some of the ideas, especially in book 2, were cool. I can barely remember if you told me to describe the personality of a character in this book, I don't know if I could. Now, when I read it, I was like, the characters are fine. Like, it wasn't like they're terrible, but I found them profoundly unmemorable. And yeah, so that's why it's going there. The Fifth Wave random YA series, not a good random YA series. We're moving on. Mistborn Era 2, I like quite a bit less than Mistborn Era 1, but I still firmly like it. Shadows of Self and Bands in Mourning are my 2 favorite, and then Lost Metal, and then Alloy of Law. I like Wayne. I don't care. I kind of like Wax as well. In Alloy of Law, when he's telling the story of, like, when he's pretending to be crass to the people at the party, that was funny. I don't care. Wax is funny. Fight me. The action is also really fun, and it's got some really great reveals and Sanderlanches. It also has some dialogue that's a little bit awkward, a little bit stilted. And Alloy of Law just kind of feels like a side quest. Miles is a really fun antagonist. I like Miles. There's a scene in Alloy of Law that I just randomly reference constantly, where Miles just tells Wax he's an army in human form. So that's fun. And I actually think Alloy of Law is really good at doing multiple things at once, where it has these chapters where it's introducing the characters, and every character introduction is them, like, doing a scene that's also advancing the plot. I'm putting it here. I don't even care. The Band, by Nicholas Ames. Very fun series. Great cover. I really like this cover. You can't tell how good it is just looking on a screen, but while reading it, I kept looking back. It's just got a lot of great details. Book 2, I think, is not as inherently compelling of a premise, but is arguably better written. And it's got the speech at the end where the dude's like, today is not the choice between life and death, but between life and immortality. And yes, the guy was probably, like, manipulating people, but I don't care. It was hype. If I was in that crowd, I would have been like, let's go, hoorah! And I'm charging him. So I like I like the band. It's not a series I've thought about that much since I read it. But we're going to put it above Skyward. The Black Company. I love The Black Company. The Black Company is one of my favorite series. Soldiers Live was one of my favorite series. They're incredibly consistent, in my opinion. It's actually one of the... This was a series... I had so low expectations going into Black Company. I'd seen a couple people not like it recently, who I generally agree with. And I just think it's great from start to finish. I think the characters are great. I think the setting is fantastic. I think it's got maybe like books 5 and 6 are a little rough compared to the rest, but I still really like those. It's got one of the best endings I've ever read. It's command of voice with the different narrators. I just also love... I think Glenn Cook's hilarious. I love his quirks. You know, sometimes as an author's like I think Steven Erikson is a better writer than Glenn Cook, but I've talked about this in my top 10, where I talked about them at the same time. A lot of Erikson's quirks really annoy me. I really like all of Glenn Cook's quirks, so that's where he gets. Bloodsworn Saga. I like Bloodsworn. It's very linear in its source of conflict. It unfortunately at no point blew my mind. It didn't quite make me hate people as much as The Faithful and the Fallen, so I wasn't quite as emotionally invested. We're gonna put it here. I like these as gonna be a really full tier. Bell curve, baby. Speaking of which, the Books of Babel, Senlin Ascends. I probably like these more than Shadow of the Gods. These were just all 4-star books. I like the final book. It's my least favorite of the 4. Josiah Bancroft is just bad at writing action, in my opinion. He just shouldn't write action. He should just make action scenes, one sentence, and just tell me who won. They aren't gripping. They aren't compelling. The action scenes don't add to the narrative. I'm just reading them to find out what happens. But he's pretty darn good at everything else. Really like his writing. It's very, the setting of Tower of Babel and how it interacts with the characterization, plot, theme, and story is really good. I would say I like it about this much. We're going to stop being kind of as precise and just throw them in the middle. Do I like it? Yeah. We're going to put it there. Books of Earthsea. Ursula K. Le Guin. You got to like some Ursula K. Le Guin. Tihanu and Tomes of Atuan especially I thought were pretty darn excellent. This is a really wide tier. Difference between Knife of Neverletting. Should this have been 2 tiers? Should I be... I don't not like these. So that's that can still be books that I kind of like. I feel like we might need to move, some of these. Okay, Shadow of the Gods should probably be higher. I like these. Okay, we're going to do this. Earthsea I definitely like. This tier is just going to be really full. It's fine. I like a lot of things that are not necessarily things I love. But these are definitely comfortable enough where if you ask me what I think about the series, I'm going to be like, I like them. I'm not going to... These, it's I don't dislike them, but it's going to be yeah, I guess I like them. This was generous. It's pretty close. Whatever. Earthsea. Very wondrous. Love the magic. World super fun. Funny thing is, I disagree with a lot of, a lot of the themes are related to death, and I think they're kind of, accepting it. I think a lot of the time I disagree with Ursula K. Le Guin about this, but I think it's still a very well-written series, and we're going to put it up here. No, that's not true. I'm being biased because I just think Le Guin is Le Guin and deserves respect. But that's partially because the Dispossessed is so good. We're going to put this a little lower. Even though, yes, Le Guin is a better writer than Nicholas Ames. Okay, yeah, we're going to put it above Senlin. Okay. Broken Earth. This is another instance where if I had only read book 1, it would be up here. And then I like book 2 a little bit less. And then book 3, I think, has some issues that is hard to talk about in a non-spoiler way. You can go read my Goodreads review if you want. I think there are some immersion-breaking things. I think N.K. Jemisin is very good at writing characters with struggles that she finds personally relatable. And I think there are some characters who she would not personally relate to that are written in my opinion, pretty one-dimensionally. That being said, I definitely still like Broken Earth because the 5th season is incredible. Like, especially the first half of the 5th season, like, everything, world building, plot, prose, theme is, like, bonkersly good. So I like book 1 about as much as I like Lies of Locke Lamora, but then I like book 2 then I like Red Season Under Red Sky more than Obelisk Gate. And do I like The Stone Sky or Republic of Thieves more? That's probably pretty close. So we're going to put this, like, here, you know? The Burning by Evan Winter. I love The Burning. I don't even care. It goes so hard. I stayed up till 6 a.m. reading The Rage of Dragons. It's the best paced novel that I've ever read, I think, and is incredibly gripping, and I will stand by the more, like, craft stuff that's seen as more important, where I think the character friendships are really good. I think Tao's a really good protagonist. I understand lots of people are lower on me than this series. I don't even care. I like it more than Malazan. Do I think it's more impressive of an artistic creation than Malazan? No. But I personally enjoy it more. You know what I don't enjoy more? Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which I do not like. I have not read book 2. I'm not going to read book 2. I think the technical writing is fine. And everything about it is shallow. My biggest, like, so this is just, it's a romance novel. It's the romance plot. You know the standard romance plot? That's the plot. Now you know what happens in every romance novel, but you know what happens in every romance novel. That's going to be the plot. There are details. They're allegedly important. Except in this, the main characters are supposed to be, like, deities from immortals from Chinese mythology, and that's, like, the twist on the standard romance plot. But it doesn't actually affect the plot at all. Like, it actually just creates plot holes. Hey, speaking of things I dislike, The Emperor's Blades. Speaking of plot holes, The Emperor's Blades. Lot of good ideas where I'm like, that's cool. Hey, they're riding falcons. Hey, the Emperor just died. An incredible lack of attention to detail, in my opinion. Like, I think books generally, like, book writers are more focused on attention to detail than show writers. This is why I think Shogun stood out too much, like the TV show, because the attention to detail is incredible. Same with, like, early seasons Game of Thrones. This is what they lose. This reminded me of, like, watching a TV show you've never heard of, attention to detail, where there's just things that don't make sense, almost on a chapter-by-chapter basis. Also, it's like a 450-page book that could have started on, like, page 375. I don't like it. Hey, I definitely have one series on here twice. Oopsie. Whatever. It was bound to happen. I'd add all these manually. The Culture by Neen Banks. I've only read one book. That book was Player of Games. That's why I have it on here. Player of Games, I really liked it. I liked it, I would say, ever so slightly more than The Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. The Dave Bad Trilogy. I've only read City of Brass. I didn't not like City of Brass. It was thoroughly okay, in my opinion. The City of Brass was cool. The mythology was cool. It started really fast. It had some things in its favor. There's a character who just kept having the same character beats over and over again. Where it'd just be like, go to this, have a revelation, go back, oh, never mind, go to this, have a revelation. Also, as an econ student, there are things they keep being like, economics. I'm like, no, whatever. I did not like it. It was fine. The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. Speaking Bones is spiritual experience. Wall of Storms is borderline spiritual experience. Can I put this as the first series in spiritual experience? No. We are reserving spiritual experience for the true tippy top series. Dandelion Dynasty is pretty damn close, though. It's my favorite series, definitively, that we have gotten to on this. Speaking Bones is one of my favorite books of all time. Wall of Storms just goes hard from start. Actually, it doesn't go hard from start to finish, but it's, I think, like, every book in this series is different, especially if you think of, like, Veiled Throne and Speaking Bones as one huge book. They all have their own stylistic strengths and weaknesses, but just by the time I got to the end in its entirety, It's one of my favorite series ever, partially because of how well it wrapped it all up. And I was amazed by so much that Ken Lee did. Darkest Minds, random YA series. Don't even know why I decided to include these. Probably is worse than everything else here. The thing is, I remember having fun reading I Am Number 4 as a child. Actually, it should be higher. I don't really remember having any fun reading The Darkest Mind. I just remember it's whatever. Hey, Master of Jin, another thing I have on here twice. Oopsie. Stormfront. Dresden Files. Not just Stormfront. Stormfront would be like here. But the Dresden Files. I'm just going to move these to the very bottom really quick. The Dresden Files. The Dresden Files is one of my favorite series of all time. Right now, if I have to do favorite series, I answered this on a Discord. They made me put complete and incomplete together, and I had to pick between the Dresden Files and the Dandelion Dynasty. And I don't remember what I picked, because they're so close. Dresden obviously starts much weaker, but it just is such a, like, it's a massively important part of who I am as a person. Oh, that sounds like a spiritual experience, doesn't it? But I don't think it can be in a different tier from the Dandelion Dynasty. I could just also move Dandelion Dynasty up into spiritual experience. What would that mean then we'd get spiritual experience? Other than that, it would just be like, not that. You know what? We're going to do it. Dandelion Dynasty is a spiritual experience, as is the Dresden Files. No, that's not true. But I absolutely love both, and the Dresden Files has one of the most absurd long stretches of consistently incredible books that I have read, and I think by the time it gets to like Skin Game, Jim Butcher is essentially good at everything to an unfair degree. Wave of Dan by Philip Chase. I've only read book 1, and I liked book 1, but I didn't love book 1. I thought it actually reminded me the most of Eye of the World, but I distinctly like Eye of the World more. It's got some cool magic stuff. I like the antagonist perspective. I found I normally don't get annoyed by descriptive writing. I thought Philip had a lot of just like streaks of pretty long descriptive writing. And I know he just really likes descriptive writing. Like, he's talked about this. To me, I did not like his descriptive writing to enjoy it on its own merits. But I didn't not like it. So we're going to put it above Lightbringer, because screw Lightbringer. Even though Lightbringer has some books I really like. The Expanse, 9-book series. I've read one of them, and it was solid. I thought it was solid everything. A ton happened. Things escalated surprisingly quickly. I quite liked it. I probably liked it more than I liked Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Faithful and the Fallen, which is John Gwynn's first 4-book series, and I really like it. I like it a little bit more than Of Blood and Bone. Like, Broken Earth is more impressive as a work of art, but I probably consistently enjoyed The Faithful and the Fallen more. Dune is a more impressive creation, especially as a world. I probably more consistently enjoyed The Faithful and the Fallen. No, we're not putting it above Dune. The Farseer Trilogy. Yes, I split the various Realm of the Otherlings. So that's how we're going to make spiritual experience not empty. But the Farseer Trilogy was not a spiritual experience, but I love the Farseer Trilogy, especially on reread. I think it has some of, like, it's not Hobb at peak character work. It still has truly incredible character work. I think, like, every time now I reread Hobb, I get reminded of how much more deeply I engage with her characters as people than, like, anyone else. And that happened for my Royal Assassin reread and Assassin's Quest reread. That being said, the pacing of Assassin's Quest is a complete mess, but I still really like the book. I don't care. But I'm putting it below. Do I like it more than the Age of Madness trilogy? Probably not. We're going to put it here. The Fiona of Our Tapestry by Guy Gavriel. This is, again, a book series that has distinct flaws. Like, it's a portal fantasy, and the portal fantasy aspects of it are kind of like, okay. But I like it. I like it about this much. The First Law trilogy. This is the first trilogy. This is Blade itself, Before They Are Hanged, and Last Argument of Kings, which I also really like. I think we're going to put this at the bottom of I love these. It's kind of the marker. If I like it less than the First Law, I like it. If I like it more than the First Law trilogy, I love it. Obviously great character work, especially like the POV characters, other than Pharaoh, I think, kind of like the other day people were joking about like the horseshoe arcs in First Law, and I had the meme of like Pharaoh being like, you guys are getting character arcs. Incredibly one-note character. Supporting cast also can be weaker, and the plotting of the first book can be weaker, but like the strength of the non-Pharaoh characters just carry so much weight. Some great reveals and like plot twists down the stretch as well. It's just so true to what it's trying to be. Okay. The Fits and the Fools trilogy is a spiritual experience. Assassin's Fate is my favorite book of all time. It wraps up an entire 16-book arc from my favorite series ever, and it does it as perfectly as I ever could ask it to. Fool's Assassin, nothing bloody happens in until 90% in, and it's straight up one of my favorite books of all time. Yeah, I mean, it's up there. 5 Warriors Angels. So this is what I'm reading right now. I'm reading The Lonesome Crown. 5 Warrior Angels, the first 2 books, would be like up here. It's still an I like these. This is, you're going to see this on I mentioned this in my last wrap-up. I am still finding Lonesome Crown to be quite disappointing. I am currently falling into the trap where it's introducing doubt of whether the things that I don't like about Lonesome Crown, if I now went back and reread Forgetting Moon and Blackest Heart, would they be there? I think the answer is no. I think I have to trust the version of me who read those 2 and trust that those 2 are actually just really good books. Brian Lee Durfee's good enough in enough things that I'm not going to dislike The Lonesome Crown, but it drags it down quite a bit further than it would have been. Probably actually to a pretty similar spot of Red Rising in terms of the average rating of the book, because I'm probably going to like The Lonesome Crown about as much as I like Red Rising the book. And then I probably like Blackest Heart more than Morning Star. And I probably like Golden Sun more than Forgetting Moon, but it's pretty close. The problem is Lonesome Crown is the longest of the 3 books, so I have to weight that higher. So I am going to put it below Red Rising. But I'm going to put it above Shadow of the Gods because I think it hits higher highs. Foundry Side, I thought the first book was there. The second book, I DNF'd the second book. I think the second book was not good. I thought the magic system is very cool. I know people don't care about magic systems. Whatever. There's not that many series that I've read, other than Sanderson, who have like a hard magic system where I'm like, wow, this really added to the story. Like, hard magic is not as prevalent as people who complain about it act like it is. Like, of all these series that has magic, like soft magic, soft magic, soft magic, soft magic. Obviously, magic is a spectrum. You have some idea, but these are definitely not hard magic. This one's a little harder. Soft magic, hard-ish magic, soft magic, soft magic, soft magic, soft magic, soft sci-fi. Soft magic, Sanderson. Sci-fi, soft magic. Sci-fi, soft magic. Soft magic, soft magic. Sci-fi, sci-fi, soft magic, soft magic. That also could be sci-fi, though. But it's still soft magic. Soft magic, soft magic. Sanderson. Soft magic, soft magic, soft. Sci-fi, soft magic. Barely any magic, actually, at all. Soft magic. Soft. Sci-fi. Absurd magic, so soft magic. Soft magic, soft magic, soft magic. Like, Lightbringer has harder magic, and Foundry Side, and, like, arguably Rage of Dragons. If you don't, I know this is a completely separate thing. If you don't like hard magic, stop acting like that's ruining the genre. Just don't read the books with hard magic. It's like 1 in 20 fantasy novels. The one in here is really goddamn cool. It adds to the story a lot. It's just like all I think it does well is the problem. And it's like a modifier. It can take a book that I like and make it even cooler. Shorefall introduced a character who is like a super old character, like an ancient being. I think it's one of the most pathetically written old characters that I've ever encountered. It reads closer to a 12-year-old than a 2,000-year-old. Every scene they were on made me just want to stop, and eventually I did. Graceling, random YA series I read a while ago. I like the part where they're climbing the mountain. I guess I don't not like it. Greatcoats. Oh, Greatcoats. I've read 2 Greatcoat novels. I don't particularly like either of them. The banter between the main characters, is very good. The story, I think, is a complete mess. In terms of just, like, it loses the ability to feel tension because of the amount of Deus Ex Machina in the future. Like, do you guys know Ryan George, the dude who does, like, the pitch meetings? Who just does, like, it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. If there was a pitch meeting for Trader's Blade, it would be like, so we're screwed in this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way, and we have seemingly no way out. And the producer guy would be like, oh, so it's going to be hard to deal with that first thing. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. Well, that second thing, that's completely insurmountable. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. Well, what about that third thing? Super easy, barely an inconvenience. Athalia is trash. She's like the worst written character ever. Just shouldn't exist. I still wouldn't like the books if Athalia was gone, but I'd like them. I'd be mad at them a lot less. There's a thing with assassins in book 2 that is legitimately one of the most absurd things I've ever read. Like, also, I found, like, the character beats. Like, book 1, I had a lot to complain about, but there was a lot more that I found distinctly fun. Like, the action scenes, there were a number where I was like, okay, rapiers are cool. This man's dual-wielding rapiers. Book 2 lost that to a degree, and I found the character dynamics got very stale because they were just repetitive. It was just the same character dynamics for the entire book, just on repeat. I dislike Greatcoats, but I think it's better than these other 3 series. I'm putting the YA series, I kind of just have the 2 YA series and, like, the 4 more recent. This is allegedly not a YA, whatever. The two, no, I shouldn't go YA at all. The 2 I read, before I was 15, 14, whatever. And, like, the ones that I read in the last few years, almost just separately. But yeah, despite the good banter and friendships, there's just so much about the first 2 Greatcoat books that I just think are absurdly poorly thought through and completely ridiculous. So I dislike them, and that's why I didn't continue. The Greenbone Saga, on the other hand, Greenbone Saga or First Law Trilogy? Probably. I lied before. Because I love Greenbone. No, we're going to put it there. Greenbone, I think, is pretty excellent. It's kind of like if you just got like a B+ to an A at nearly everything. I think its strongest aspect is its character. I think Fonda Lee is very good at considering when people are interacting with each other, like how they see each other and like how their social standing between each other and how their past affects how they talk to each other. Jade Legacy, I think, is just really good. I think it was a very ambitiously plotted novel with like the just numerous time skips that I had some problems with for the first half, but really reined it in. It follows a generational tale, so I think it's really good. If Kev is watching this, me putting Greatcoats in dislike immediately followed by putting Greenbone up and I love these is going to make him mad. But you know what, Kev? Cope. Heroes of Olympus. I don't know if I like Heroes of Olympus more or Percy Jackson and the Olympian more. Like, House of Hades is, I think, the best Rick Riordan book that I've read. But Blood of Olympus is the worst Rick Riordan book that I've read. But I think I'm going to just put it next to each other and slightly higher. Hunger Games, I think, has aged better than almost every other YA series. And I'm going to put it up with, like, up here. Heron Cycle, I read these a long time ago. So the confidence interval on these is, the ones I read a long time ago, is much smaller. Like, I'm very confident I like, these about, the ones I read recently, about as much as I do. Not so much for Inheritance Cycle. But I'm going to put it at the very bottom of I don't not like these. Because I don't know if I dislike them, but I definitely can't confidently say I like them. I'm putting it above Binti. Because it just has more that endearing to me in my memory. You know what? We're putting it above Graceling as well. We read these at a similar time, and I like them more. You know what? Screw it. We're putting them up here. No, we're not. This is actually low. Book of the Ancestors should be higher. Holy Sister was pretty good. Kingkiller Chronicle. I like Kingkiller. I especially like Name of the Wind. I don't not like Wise Man. Like, Wise Man's Fear on its own would be down here. Kingkiller would be, like, up here. We're going to put it... Kingkiller or five... These are very similar again, because all three of these have one book in them. Man, I might like Wise Man's Fear more than I like Lonesome Crown and Red Rising. But man, Wise Man's Fear has a lot that I just am not happy with. I don't know if that's all true, that I like it. We're going to put it here. Lawful Times is thoroughly okay. I don't think it did much that was, like, completely egregious, but it's profoundly unmemorable. The Live Ship Traders is, of course, a spiritual experience. The Live Ship Traders is, since we're splitting Realm of the Elder Rings, is my favorite series of all time. I think it's the best character work I've ever read. I think it's still very well plotted. I think the world building and setting is actually, I just think it's really good at everything. And I didn't even mention Robin Hobb's writing in this or this, but Robin Hobb's writing is gorgeous. I think being in third person while still being top tier Hobb actually lets her do some things with theme and character that she can't in the others. I bought the Subterranean Press edition of this book, even though it's, for how much you pay, profoundly disappointing. And I would not... There are very few series who I would have got a Subterranean Press, where really it's just a new dust jacket and, like, high-quality acid-free paper. And I guess it's printed in 2 tones. But, like, I guess it's cloth-bound. But it's really just a very normal book. With just slightly higher quality binding and paper. But presumably it'll last a long time. And the thing is, it's Ship of Magic. So I had to own it. Because it's Live Ship. It's like my favorite combination of words. Gideon and the Ninth I dislike. I've only read Gideon the Ninth. I have not read the follow-ups. I think Tamsin Muir is probably a better writer than all the people in this tier. I just don't like it. I found it incredibly boring. I think the relationship between Harrow and Gideon was at times kind of good. Like, I have a review of Gideon the Ninth if you want me to elaborate. We're saving time. We're not getting into this right now. How long have we been going? I don't even know. Probably a long time. Long Price Quartet. Finished this recently. Really like it. All 4 books were solid. I probably like it. It's hard to compare with things like 5th Season, because it's like, I don't think any of them were as good as the 5th Season. But then I think all of them I like more than Obelisk Gate and The Stone Sky. But it's probably pretty easy to compare with Faithful and the Fallen, and I think I probably like it more. Lord of the Rings is amazing. I'm going to put it all the way like up here. I reread this a couple years ago. It's Lord of the Rings. Scouring of the Shire is one of my favorite chapters. Fight me. Yeah, I've got a really long video about Lord of the Rings. If you want to hear about Lord of the Rings, I actually contrast my first 2 experiences. Because the first time I read it, it would have been like here or something. But then I was like, wait, I think I read it wrong. I have a video called I Read the Lord of the Rings Wrong if you want me to go into more detail. Mare of Thieves. Mare of Thieves is, I think, a not good novel. It kind of it's like 300 pages or something, and I think it kind of wanders around with no real, like, it's like, we have to get here, but I have no idea why they're trying to get there. Like, it doesn't really give me a reason to suspect that actually makes a difference. And so they wander around for like 230 of those 300 pages, and then there's like a really tense gripping section that's actually good, and then, so that's good for like 35 pages. And actually this, I don't even care. I get 1 star. Even though it's better, it was painful to get through this novel, and painful. You know what? This is distinctly worse than, I think, Emperor's Blades. Which while reading, I wasn't actively painful. I was just kind of like, well, this is dumb. Well, this is dumb. And then there's some of the worst forced drama that I've ever read in a novel, and I would have DNF'd it if it wasn't a book club book that had like 30 pages left, but whatever. We made it to the end. Maze Runner, whatever. The idea is kind of cool. It had some... I read Maze Runner a long time ago, okay? We're putting it above Fifth Wave and before I Am Number 4. I don't remember. These could completely switch if I read them now. Murderbot. I've only read All Systems Red. I thought Murderbot was funny. I thought was a good main character, and that everything else was pretty mediocre. I did not like it, but I don't know if I could confidently say I liked it. I would say I liked the Poppy War. Especially book 2. Goes pretty hard. But probably like low liked it. I don't know if I would say... Yeah, I like it like that much. The Rainwild Chronicles by Robin Hobb. So there are 2 Robin Hobb series that people generally don't like. The Soldier Son and the Rainwilds. I like Soldier Son a lot more. Rainwild, I would say I don't not like. But the top of I don't not like. When people ask me like, oh, what do you think of the Rainwilds? I'm like, I don't not like the Rainwilds. I don't know if I love the Rainwilds. Reckoners. Each book, like books, the first 2 I thought were extremely fun. Great idea. It's basically what's it called? The Boys before the Boys, after the Boys. The Boys was an adaptation. It was the Boys after the Boys. I like the protagonist. There's some really fun moments. Do I like these? I think I probably like these. No, I don't. Yeah. The Sarantine Mosaic is a spiritual experience. I just realized I forgot... Oh, no, Stormlight's here. I was about to be like, did I forget the Stormlight archives? No. Okay, Sarantine Mosaic is a spiritual experience. Lord of Emperors is probably my second favorite book of all time. On some days, it's my favorite book of all time. This book is the origin of me describing the top tier like that, because I've described reading a chariot race in... I know it sounds... It's a chariot race, who cares? But it may have been a spiritual experience. I think Lord of the Embers is outrageously good at nearly everything. I've talked about it a lot. Shadow and Bone, I remember very little about. The lady had, like, light powers. I read this in my high school library, I think in grade, like, 9 or 10 or something. And I was bored. And, considering the entire point of this book, I think, is to be a fast read and not boring, it's probably not good. So, I would say I disliked reading these. I actually think I definitely had more fun reading these. I'm actually going to put it at the bottom, dislike. Shadow Campaigns, only read book 1. Pretty good. It was pretty fun. Had fun action. I did not like it. Stormlight. Stormlight's a spiritual experience. Stormlight's obviously one of my favorite series ever. I'm rereading Oathbringer right now. I completely love all 4 novels to an outrageous degree. It's been one of my favorite series for a long time. Yeah. The Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio. I've also talked a lot about Stormlight, so I'm trying to talk more about the ones that you hear about less. The Sun Eater, obviously, is like here. I really like every book in the series. I think Hadrian is one of the... Like, he's had I've known him for an insanely long time. Like, how much you learn to know a character. And I think it's funny how different people's perspective on him. Like, as a dude, at times he's really unlikable and frustrating. But I think he's just a fantastically written character. The setting is outrageous in how crazily good it is. I love Rocchio's writing. I think the only thing holding this back as, like, the relative weakness is the supporting cast. I really want Rocchio to write a third-person multi-POV series, because every time, like, I'll read The Sun Eater, I'm like, stands out every time that I think the worst aspect about them is the supporting cast. Not that it's like, terrible, but it's just kind of like there's a couple other cool characters, and I think it's the biggest weakness of the series by far. But then whenever I read those characters from their own perspective, they're really cool. And I think if he had a series where you were getting things from a bunch of different people's perspective, it might feel like the supporting cast was really good as well. But I don't know if he'll do it. But it'd be really interesting to see a Rockio multi-POV story. And then, yeah, Wizard's First Rule isn't good. It's probably worse than all of these. I don't know if it's worse than these two. Yeah, I've only read Wizard's First Rule. I read it on audio. It almost ruined the word friend for me because of how bad the dialogue was, where he was like, you know, press one button, actually build relationships. Press the other button, just have people call each other friend in every single goddamn conversation for like the first third of this book. The part where the people are called Richard with the temper was funny, I guess. And then, you know, there's the entire, like, dominatrix thing at the end that we're just going to leave alone. The Tawny Man trilogy was, of course, a spiritual experience. This is the third series in Realm of the Elderlings, and it's some people's favorite. It's probably my third favorite. It could be my second on a good day. Fool's Errand specifically is legitimately just one of my favorite books of all time. I still feel like I felt the emotional impact of that book like a year later. Yeah, like after Farseer Trilogy, I was like, wow, Robin Hobb is such a good character writer. I don't know if Fitz was my favorite character. Then after Live Ship, Fitz was like, I don't know, my 12th favorite Robin Hobb character. 100 pages into Fool's Errand, I was just like, oh, so Fitz is going to be my favorite character ever. Sick. That's how good it is. Trials of Apollo, I read 2 books for it, and then I switched to Wheel of Time and did all this. It was fine. The Vorkosigan Saga by Louis McMaster Bujold. I am through memory right now, and I love the Vorkosigan Saga. I think it's amazing. It's a lot faster than all of these except Dresden and maybe Alara. And more like bingeable, but it manages to maintain the quality of character work. She's one of the best plotters that I've ever read, and she's one of the best character writers that I've ever read at the same time. Vorkosigan is also funny, like the series, but it's like, it's low-key funny. It doesn't feel like it had to go out of its way to be funny. It just like was you quietly are just like, wait a second, I laughed out loud like 7 times reading this book without having to feel like Louis Bujold had to go out of her way to be comedic. Wheel of Time, obviously I love the Wheel of Time, probably about as much as like, right here, I probably was higher on Wheel of Time when I first read it. It would have been in Spiritual Experience. I've gotten a little lower. The highs are Spiritual Experience. The Gathering Storm, I mean, Veins of Gold is spiritual. If there's a scene, if there's a chapter that's Spiritual Experience, that's one of them. But I just can't ignore the lows. And there are lows. I think the long-term character development is insanely good, and Rand is one of the best characters I've ever read. Witcher. This is one I've just consistently gotten lower on. I think at this point I would say I dislike The Witcher. I like Geralt the character. I don't know how much else The scene in Tower of Shallows, this isn't going to be a spoiler, I'm just going to where she skates. The skating scene, that was dope. Overall, I just found it incredibly disappointing. Throne of Glass, I read a long time ago. Probably isn't like Shadow and Bone. Oh, these I didn't enjoy any of these. Mild Torture is probably an exaggeration, but you know what? I found them somewhat painful to read. Throne of Glass, actually, I'm going to put above these. Because I think it's kind of more in the these tier list. Probably like it more in the fifth wave. I don't actually think I like these 4 more than these 5. I've just kind of separated them in my head. Like, probably if I was trying Witcher and then, like, I'm number 4 and then, like, Throne of Glass. I don't even know. Whatever. We're just having them separate. This is the correct order. This is the correct order of these 5, and this is the correct order of these 4. The Witness Trilogy. That's one book right now, which is The God Is Not Willing by Steven Erikson. I quite like. I like Malazan a fair bit more than the Witness Trilogy. I probably like 7 of the 10 main Malazan books more, but I still quite like it. It has some stuff in the second half that no, it's not that high, that I complained about a good amount, that I shall leave here, because it's one of the few usually I think I can articulate my complaints in a spoiler-free way. I just couldn't here. I had to be specific, so if you're curious what I was complaining about, it's in the second half. This is World of the Five Gods by Luce McMaster Bujold, which is barely a series, but we're stat padding. And is composed of Curse of the Chalian and Paladin of Souls. I love Curse of the Chalian, and I like Paladin. The first half of Paladin of Souls, I was like, this is a little rough, but then it got me back in the second half. I would say I like it more than Fiodavar. We're going to put it there. And then these are repeats. So let's zoom out a bit, because we've got too many series. This is what we got. It's actually not 93, because these were right. 91 series. Surprisingly nicely bell curved. We got 5 spiritual experiences. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 18 per column, apparently. Whatever. So 19 that I love. And then 30, math is hard. 33 probably that I like. And then 19 that I don't not like. And then 9 that I dislike. And 6 that were a form of very mild torture. Like, not enough that I would actually give away the secrets, but enough that I'd be like, God damn, it'd be nice if I could just spill the beans and end this, you know? Like, not Glocta approved torture, or Severian approved, or like Severian, but like, you know, very, very mild torture. So, when I first started watching BookTube, it was Daniel Green, and I'd watch his Wheel of Time stuff, and I started Wheel of Time, and I was really liking Wheel of Time. He liked the Cosmere, and I was like, okay, I tend to agree with this dude about books. So I just took the stuff in his top tier, and I read him. And I made that my TBR. I have more series on this than Daniel had on his, by a pretty wide margin. But obviously, Daniel, if he did his version now, would have a lot more series than he did as well. And considering how helpful of a video that was for me, I now provide this for you, and it's going to be just an aggressively long video. This is OBS Studios. An hour and 12 minutes. We're not going to edit this at all. It's going up just like this, basically. So I hope you enjoyed it. This should be a public one, so I will leave the description, the link to this tier list maker in the description. Obviously, just make make another tier, add a row below, call it haven't read. And you should be able to post a link to it. If you know me on Discord, feel free to post it on any of the Discords or tag me or DM. I'd be very curious to see what y'all got. I hope you enjoyed the video. And, man, actually, there's some things I said. Some people are probably going to yell at me. But that's okay. If I'm not willing to get yelled at, what am I doing? And also, most of you will be like, you're actually, I think BookTube comments are specifically good at, usually I think for a lot of areas of the internet, when people agree with you, they stay silent, and when they disagree, they yell at you. BookTube is great because I think people, when they disagree with someone, it's a community where they're all more likely to be like, he has his opinion, he has his fun, I'm happy for him. And the people who agree and also love something are like, yeah, let's go, that was awesome. So it's one of the great things about what we have here. Thanks for being awesome, everyone. Have a good day.